It's time for another edition of Neat and Mixed, and we've got questions for a man that does so much, and he's going to be at a pretty cool place this September, the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, September 5th through 7th. Tickets are sold out, but if you have tickets, he's got a cool add-on event called
Yeah.
What What Goes Up? Whiskey cocktails best served up. He's also the lead bartender at Tartan House in Louisville. Let's welcome in Eron Plevan.
Hello.
Welcome in,
Hello.
Eron.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. This is really fun.
Absolutely. And like I said, you got a lot going on. You got a cool event there at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival in September. Tickets are still available for it to add on if you're going. I highly recommend you look at some of those premium events that are still up. But before we get to the event and all that is Kentucky Bourbon Festival, let's start with your story because you were born in Texas, right? How did you end
Yeah.
up as a lead bartender and behind the bar in Louisville and Kentucky of all places?
Yeah, it's quite a little journey. Yeah, so I'm from originally Texas, around the Austin area, Burnet, Texas, which is just right outside of Austin. Born in San Antonio, graduated high school in Burnet, and then went to get my undergrad in San Angelo, Texas, in psychology. Got my undergrad there, and then knew I wanted to pursue a master's in um, a counseling situation. I really kind of want to go the education route and kind of put my hands in maybe some writing or curriculum or classroom settings and things like that. So I moved here in 2006. So actually, this month I've been in Louisville, Kentucky, 19 years.
Whew.
So almost two whole decades, which is crazy to think about. Time really flies. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of a plot twist. I was married at the time, and then I just kind of went through a divorce, and really was about 4 years into my master's program when it all sort of just got complicated. I decided to pull away like within the last about a semester and a half. Just kind of went through some life things for about 2 years. Decided to not return back to school because I felt like now I'm sort of asking new questions. I'm sort of at a different, trajectory now. Now, at the time after my divorce, my ex-spouse just moved out of state. So I'm literally now just in Kentucky, being a guy, not doing what I was originally going to do, and I need something to do. So I worked a few odd jobs and worked at Target, worked at Starbucks, and things like that until one day. I had been to a couple of like Louisville restaurants and really dug the vibe. And I was like, I really like I don't know, the artistic, I don't know, I like how the servers look. I love the overall music and all kinds of stuff. And obviously the food is incredible. Sorry, my dog is walking by and this has no regard for this little tripod. And just kind of felt like I feel like I want to fit here. And I applied for a server job at what at the time was a restaurant called the Blind Pig, which was followed by Butchertown Grocery, which is now followed by Decade in Butchertown on Washington Street. The person at the time, Jeremy Johnson, who now owns Meta, told me that they were not looking for servers for the Blind Pig and could use a host to check IDs since I had no experience for a new concept that they were going to put upstairs, what ended up becoming a bar called Meat that ended up on the world's best 50 list. It was a 37th best bar in the world, which I didn't know what that meant at the time. I was like, I don't know I don't even know what an old fashioned is. I don't know what these awards mean. Looking back, it truly was formative for me. And yeah, off I went and was very inspired. I worked there about a year and a half. It closed right around that time, so I was there from beginning to end, as all great bars do. They close immediately, and so my career path kind of was I went to the Seelbach Hotel where I worked for about 4.5 years, which I resumed doing Starbucks stuff there, but on the side I was doing beverage design and service in the Oak Room, which at the time was a Five Diamond restaurant, the only one in the region. So that formed me in terms of elegant service and very high standards and what a true kitchen felt like. So that was cool to kind of get that experience, and then moved to 8 Up as a bar manager. Uh, then did that for about a year and a half too. And then I'd always wanted to work at Copper and Kings. They weren't ready for me when they first opened, but about 2 years after they opened, I started working at Copper and Kings as just kind of anything they wanted me to do. And yeah, long story short, I always say every job up until Copper and Kings prepared me to be successful at Copper and Kings. And then everything I did at Copper and Kings prepared me to be entrepreneurial and do things on my own. And so after that, I helped open Gold Bar, which is also no longer in existence, as bars do. And then kind of jumped around to some consulting things, started doing a lot of freelance photography, freelance consulting, private events, and things like that, kind of on my own. And then about a year later, a buddy of mine who I met in some random ways, which maybe we can talk about later, Jeff Knott, who was the bar manager at the time at Willett Distillery, at the bar at Willett, told me he was getting ready to open a Scotch whiskey bar in Butchertown. And I was like, I don't know much about Scotch. I guess I better learn. And he asked me if I wanted to be his head bartender. And this was about a year out from it opening. And I was like, well, yes, I'm in. And he does, if you've been to the bar at Willett, they do liquid nitrogen, they do hand cut ice. And I was like, are we doing that? And he was like, yes. And I said, I'm in. Because I'd never, I've worked with hand cut ice, but I've never worked with liquid nitrogen and that whole presentation and that whole science behind it. So I told him I was in, but it was still a year away. So I worked at North of Bourbon for a little while bartending, which is, a wonderful restaurant, still in existence. It has not closed yet. So I don't know if I'm the curse or what, but we, kind of did that for a little while and worked with that team and owners. And then, Tartan House opened, and I've been extremely happy. And they celebrate their 1 year, August 1st. So we're, a month away. So, or so.
I was gonna say you've had quite the journey, and you talk about kind of all that you've done along the way has kind of led to where you are now, and kind of being able to do the cool things that you're able to with the events and things like that. And you've got the bartending skills, but you also, like you talked about, you were doing the creative side, and I think you've also worked on shaping menus and things like that. So what's the creative process when it comes to designing a drink or even curating a whole menu?
Sure. Yeah. I've had several opportunities, whether it's a bar that I've helped open to work at myself or, the consulting side of it where I've helped other places get started. So, for example, I worked on a project with Conhuevos to implement cocktails to their team and their establishment. And then there was a restaurant that's no longer in existence called Nostalgic that is on Bardstown Road. And it was themed after kind of childhood treats and childhood candy. That was kind of the theme given for that project to develop. And so I did that entire program. I wrote the bar manual, I wrote the training notes and prep agenda, and designed the entire cocktail menu and then handed it off as a consulting project. So kind of, I guess where it starts is it really just depends on the ask. It depends on like the theme and kind of the direction, wants to go. So when it came to Gold Bar, I knew, we were going to kind of be like a neighborhood bar that did kind of like live music and sports at times. So I wanted, things that were going to be quick and volume friendly. So I redesigned things for some cocktails to be on draft. We had a pretty easy setup, and that was more of a casual bar program where there are about 5 menu cocktails that we took serious. Everything else was just kind of like come here and do whatever, because we had a food element to it as well. It was definitely more neighborhood, like gastropubby. And so that kind of led me down the direction of, well, let's do an old fashioned. Let's do a on tap Raw spritz. Let's do a gold. I mean, you got to be Gold Bar. You have to have a banging in-house Gold Rush. And so, there are some things there that kind of led me down that direction. And then Nostalgic was, hey, childhood treats. Take, oatmeal cream pies, take Starburst, take Warheads, take all these things and formulate cocktails around them. And so that was a really fun project. But it kind of starts there. I mean, at Tartan House now, the way our menu is set up is that we all have one original. Every bartender who works there gets one original and everything else is classics. And we flip that 4 times a year. And so the last 3 menus, we've done a themed kind of menu. This theme currently is classic sayings or like wisdom sayings. My saying was "Money can't buy me love," and I really am kind of into Dubai chocolate right now. Um, it's just like a trendy thing that's happening, and then everyone loves an espresso martini. So I was like, I'm going to give the people what they want doubly. I'm going to do an espresso martini and a Dubai chocolate martini combined, and then make a little chocolate on the side. And so I'm going to call it "Money Can't Do Buy Me Love." And so it really has different entry points based on what the assignment is, but it's fun regardless. And that's sort of the way it comes out.
Well, and as folks hopefully know, there is a lot that goes into it. It's yes, it could only be a few ingredients, but you got to make sure everything is correct to get that
Absolutely.
amazing taste out. And like when you're going through that process, how much work goes into getting that cocktail just right?
I love that question. So right now I can tell you Tartan House's process. We're very fortunate to have a small enough team, but a large enough team where there are lots of minds behind kind of what we're doing. And so every month we are fortunate to have a bar meeting every single first Tuesday of the month. And when we know a menu flip is coming, about 2 months out, we will start the ideation process, and everyone will we'll know the theme and we'll know kind of a direction of where we're going. Jeff, our bar manager, kind of gives us some guidelines. He's like, do one shaken, do one stirred, and then we'll decide from there. And so our process is, we bring things to an actual meeting and a tasting, and we'll present cocktails, and the whole team will give feedback. Everyone from all the bartenders to even our other owners, who are not bartenders but are industry and have good opinions. And so um, that process is really cool, just because I get to tell people on the menu when they come in and they're like, "Hey, what's good here?" I would say, "Well, any of our originals are good because they've gone through the gauntlet of criticism. They've met the approval of our team. They've been tasted, they've been tweaked, and we got them just right. So we're really proud of those. So you really, that answers the question of what's good here, because we've actually put a lot of work and detail and time and development into these cocktails, which I don't think I've ever worked at a bar that really gave that much attention to detail to what goes on the final menu. And so that's a really good, fortunate process. Outside of that, I mean, I've got in my corner over here, I've got a big whiteboard with dry erase markers. And if I'm coming up with like a private party event, which I did not too long ago, for an Arabian Nights themed wedding anniversary, and they wanted Arabian Nights themed cocktails. And so there I am on my whiteboard, just kind of, doing some internet research on the, theme things. Had to watch some clips from Arabian Nights. I hadn't seen it in a while, and just kind of went down the ideation trails of, well, let's take some flavors from this region and so forth. And that's where I first did the Dubai chocolate coffee espresso martini, and it was such a hit. I was like, I think this is going to be a menu item at Tartan House, and I carried it over. And so things play off of each other. But yeah, there are all kinds of fun starting points for ideation for how to do that.
Well, and you're going to be able to share some of that at your event at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. Uh, what goes up, whiskey cocktails best served up. So, can you tell us kind of what a preview of what that session will be all about? And if folks don't know what up means, what that
Yeah,
means.
absolutely, absolutely. So, whiskey cocktails best served up kind of really takes on a lot of history, a lot of technique. At basically the entire seminar, I'm going to be making three different cocktails, and I don't mind telling everyone what they are. So we'll be doing a Manhattan, we'll be doing a Boulevardier served up, which is controversial, and then a paper plane. And so, kind of to answer the question of a few things. Why is something not just served up? Why is it best served up? Because you can serve anything however you want. You can serve a Manhattan on the rocks. You can serve a paper plane on the rocks. You can drink, a beer on the rocks if you want. But why is it best served in the glass that it comes in? And there's more than one answer to that. There's a historical, cultural answer, which is as cocktails developed in the early 1800s. Through the mid to late 1800s, cocktail culture and bartending as a profession really started to take shape. Bar manuals started to be written. the first one in 1862 by Jerry Thomas. And so that's where you start to see this culture develop of serving drinks in a fancy glass, which was up with like a garnish or sometimes on ice. And to answer the first question, some of these drinks are best served up because they're leaving their rudimentary service from basically out of a coffee cup or something. People are, drinking the original old fashioned as a shot in the morning to get your day started. And they're probably shooting it out of who knows what, a bowl. We don't know. Maybe some kind of glass, but there's been no thought given to the glass at the time. And so as things develop, you start to have things presented in a culturally, really just like a social way, as cocktails became a social thing in mainstream culture and society. You start to see basically plating, very much like culinary dishes. People can eat whatever they want, however they want, but you go to a restaurant that beautifully plates the same kind of food you eat at home, and it's just different because it's elevated and it's best served that way. And so, the first that kind of answers the first question. Sort of the rise of cocktail culture is what addresses that, and that's where we'll talk about the Manhattan because it's one of the earliest cocktails. And then we get into the Boulevardier, which answers the question of a cocktail that was developed during Prohibition in France. So there's debate now. I've worked in all kinds of places that say, no, you serve a Boulevardier on the rocks. No, you serve it up. No, you serve it on the rocks. And there's kind of this back and forth. And the answer to that, to me, comes down to technique. So there's cocktail technique that's developed at this point where you would serve something as kind of beautiful and like gem-like, that like a Boulevardier comes out to look like. It's got this like red hue amidst the brown and the vermouth and the whiskey that kind of makes it just like this bronzy, rubyish kind of color. And you want to see that in the glass. I don't want it convoluted by rocks and cloudy and like kind of complicated. I want it served up beautifully. I want it to kind of glow when it sets itself down in front of a guest. And so translucence and beauty is why I think you should serve a Boulevardier up, because it just looks amazing. Would it be better served on the rocks as it dilutes? The question is, or the answer is the same as you would answer a Manhattan question. Sure, you can drink a Manhattan on the rocks. That's cool. But it just looks elegant and serves, it's best served, I think, up. And then on to the paper plane. That's a technique question too. It kind of gets down to, you're shaking something. And in 1930, Harry Craddock in his bar manual said, you want to drink a drink quickly while it's still laughing at you. And so a paper plane is a beautifully, it's like an aperitivo drink. So it's kind of something you drink kind of before a meal or before something starts. And so it's something you probably want to like chug in like a couple drinks. And so it's served up, it's served cold. It's got a beautiful texture to it, which would be lost if you served it on the rocks. And so you just kind of like, it's one to just, knock out really quick. And so that's kind of a preview. I'm going to go in depth as I make these. I'm going to talk about the technique that I'm using. I'm going to talk about dilution. I'm going to talk about, it kind of gets into a little bit of a discussion, which I'll save for people who bought tickets. Why do we not need to order things in a manly glass? Manly glasses and, girly glasses, in terms of cocktail history and technique, don't exist. To refuse to drink something served up because it seems girly, that has no place in cocktail culture and cocktail history. If you truly appreciate what cocktails are and how they're meant to be drank, just drink it as it comes historically, and that will, glassware does not, identify itself other than historic or cold.
It's true. It's true. I mean, as long as it's good, it shouldn't matter how it comes, and as long as you can enjoy it. And for whiskey and bourbon, why do you think they work so well, kind of in those up cocktails? Because typically, like you said, you think of it in kind of the rocks glass and things like that, but they do work well. And what are some underrated ways that you can kind of showcase that?
I think they work well. I mean, whiskey, is typically higher proof. I think people who enjoy whiskey today at like, truly a connoisseur level or even like a cocktail level, appreciate their cocktails made a little higher proof. Um, the complexity that comes from a higher proof cocktail, I think, lends itself to just a more elegant service. I think that serving whiskey cocktails in particular up. Again, you get a beautiful bronzy color, like a beautiful Manhattan or a beautiful black Manhattan, or you know, um, a Diamondback is an old school rye apple brandy chartreuse whiskey cocktail, similar to a Bijou, which is essentially that but gin. And just you have these beautiful colors and beautiful presentation that can really just showcase whiskey in the glass. And there, not to say all of this and knock anything served on the rocks or a clear rock, because the ice we have available to us today with all these wonderful clear ice companies that have really like thrived in the last year or two, in Kentucky particularly. That also makes whiskey look gorgeous. And so I'm not knocking anything served on the rocks, but when it comes to certain things and certain cocktails, absolutely, it's just prettier in that format as opposed to on the rocks. So I feel like that's sort of my direction on that.
Well, and like you said, there are other things that that go into making a cocktail. You talked about it. One of the reasons why you were so excited to potentially come to where you are now and things like that is the creativity. And when I say creativity, like you said, using liquid nitrogen, clear out, that new kind of new ice in a sense. What's it been like to work with those type of ingredients and really experiment with cocktails?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is well, Tartan House is the first time I really worked extensively with liquid nitrogen, and it really opens the door to a lot of things. Guests come in all the time, and it really, I mean, it's about that wow factor. People come in and they order a drink, and they really don't know what Tartan House does, and they'll be like, "Well, let me get a Manhattan and a martini," and they just think they're just going to get a Manhattan and a martini, and here goes the liquid nitrogen. It's smoky, it's scientific, and then they just like lock in, and they're like, whoa, what is, and I can't tell you how many dozens of times a week the consumers like, oh, he's a mixologist, and it's just like, I mean, sure, but it's that presentation is really cool. There are other uses outside of wart removal that you could use liquid nitrogen for. And that is, things like nitro muddling. That's you can freeze garnishes. You can, if you're careful with it, and the glassware isn't too brittle, you can actually freeze liquids on top of liquids and things like that. You can layer drinks via like cryo layering, which is kind of cool. It's hard to do. I've tried it a couple times. It really comes down to the glassware, but yeah, you can literally layer different um, cocktails on top of each other by putting liquid nitrogen on top of one cocktail, letting it freeze, dumping it out, putting another one on top, letting that freeze, and kind of keep going. So it's, that's the first time I've really gotten that in depth with it. Other things, just in general, culinary techniques inform cocktails for the better in a lot of ways. And so since I've worked at Tartan House, kind of to go back to the question you asked me originally, like kind of what's a starting point for cocktail creativity. A lot of times for me, it's what technique have I not worked with before, and this time, this Dubai chocolate cocktail at Tartan House, I've never really delved into like actually how to make chocolate. And so I'm making a Dubai chocolate bite in the form of a coffee bean that goes on the side of the glass as a garnish to eat. And I make the cream filling. I buy all the ingredients to make a Dubai chocolate, and then I have silicone molds, and I'm tempering chocolate, and had to learn how to do that and things like that. So now, I'm a very amateur, very poor, untrustworthy chocolatier, though. Um, but before that, I had a cocktail that actually won an award called Laughing in Purple, yada, yada, yada. It was like an ube tropical kind of like rum, sour, whatever. But the garnish, I think, is what made the drink. And it was a horchata meringue chip So I learned how to make meringue and put it in the oven and dehydrate it and then turn it into chips. And that sat on the side, and it was just like this extremely unique, almost like macaroon sort of crunch garnish that just blew people's minds. And I was like, that's cool. I was very technique forward with that with that drink, because I was like, what have I not worked with before? And so that's kind of how I push myself. I just kind of think, with upcoming things, I kind of want for my next cocktail at Tartan House, I've been wanting to experiment and learn how to make Alka-Seltzer tabs that are cocktail flavors. And so you have your drink, and then you drop your Alka-Seltzer tab in, and it fizzes up, and it becomes the flavor of your cocktail. Um, I've looked up some simple recipes for it, but I really, want to dial it in. But that's something that I think that would be cool. I've never worked with before, so I'm like pushing myself in that way to kind of constantly going into like new territory. What can I do here? What can I do here? What can I? Because I think making actual cocktails balanced is pretty easy, depending on how uh, what ingredients you're working with. Even if you're not a bartender, you can make a good balanced drink. Buying the right things and reading the right things, you can make a balanced drink. That's not super duper the challenge. The challenge is the presentation, and then if you're going to have a garnish that accentuates it, or even like a side bite of some kind, that's really where the skill comes in, and then doing that at high volume on the weekends is where it all comes together. So, but yeah, being technique driven and finding new territory is kind of what gets me going.
Well, I was gonna say you're always learning and you're pushing yourself, and you're able to come up with even something even more creative. And like you said, for those that are trying to maybe make a cocktail at home, what are maybe a couple go-to tips or tricks to make them good? Because like you said, the basics are usually there if you kind of do the 1, 2, 3 type deal, and so forth. But to really just those simple tips that maybe can get them started on the right path.
Um, there are a lot of resources. I think honestly, find a good bar and be a good regular. And I can't tell you how many people I've met at Tartan House who've interestingly influenced our menu by being like, "Have you made this before? Have you made this before? What? Tell me what this tastes like," and gives us ideas to put something on the menu. We have really cool regulars at Tartan House who just are very informed drinkers. They're not bartenders. They just have regular jobs and are out there, and they for whatever reason, cocktails are their thing, and they have like all kinds of apps, or they read a lot of stuff. They're like, have you ever made this before? And sometimes I'm like, I've never heard of that, and that's, oh, it is an actual classic. It comes from 1907. Oh yeah, let's make it. What's up? And then it turns out to go on the menu. So I would say, go to a good cocktail bar, ask them what they're doing. Maybe not during volume. Don't chat them up as they're like getting drilled. But find a good bar home with a good bartender that you can over time get to know and pick their brain. That's kind of the first most human step. The other would be obviously find good books. I mean, I've got several back here that I have enjoyed over the years, and some of those easy classic cocktail books. Start with your history. Start with Imbibe, or start with this book is called Spirit, Sugar, Water, and Bitters by Derek Brown with Robert Yule. Really, really great starting point for learning the history of cocktails and where they come from. I would tell everyone to just learn your classics. Don't try to learn the creative cocktail influencer internet stuff. Learn your classics. Learn how to make a good solid old fashioned. Go to Cocktail Kingdom or wherever you go and get good actual bar tools. You can insert a screw with a hammer, but it works better with a screwdriver. And so same thing, if you're at home stirring with a wooden spoon your old fashioned in a bowl, not that everyone does that, but it comes down to the right tools and the right information. And so there are books, there are resources. I'd recommend imbibe.com. I would recommend punchmagazine.com online. Very good cocktail resources. To just kind of just get the ball rolling and get ideas going, and just kind of get on those websites and just kind of go down rabbit trails for like I do the same thing. I just get on there and get on my phone. I'm like, oh, what? I've never heard of this. What's this? I never heard of that ingredient. What's that? And pretty soon I'm like an hour deep with like 12 new tabs open and things like that. So I think just be curious and find the right resources, get the right tools, and yeah, kind of go from there.
Well, and see, this is why I love it because you're still learning, you're loving to teach too, and that's kind of what these add-on events at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival are all about. You get to learn cool things, meet amazing people in the industry, and probably like you said, even taste something really delicious. Tickets are still available for what's goes up whiskey cocktails best served up with Eron at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. If you got the time, make it happen on that Friday. Kentucky Bourbon Festival is all weekend long, the 5th through 7th of September. KYBourbonFestival.com for more information. And Eron, my last question, you talk about, people saying what's good here. Usually it's pretty simple. What's good here at Tartan House is what's on the menu because, like you said, so much went into it. But if someone sits down at the bar and says, surprise me, what do you make, especially for the whiskey fan?
Well, I have fun with it because it depends on how busy we are. It depends on a few things. Someone just comes up and is like, just surprise me. Sometimes I'm like, there are no takebacks. If I surprise you, it's a pure surprise, and you have to drink it. You have to pay for it. You have to finish it. And depending on the person, I might make them a Malort daiquiri, and just kind of see how they roll with it. Um, Sometimes I do ask a follow up question on, from the most responsible, which is, do you have any allergies? Is there anything you absolutely hate? Sometimes I'll be like, yeah, I have a tree nut allergy, or I have a pineapple allergy, or I can't do cinnamon, or something like that. Also helpful. And then I usually ask, do you want something kind of served up and boozy, kind of something to take your time with, or do you want something shaken and refreshing style? Um, and and then I follow up really quickly, and at that point I'm like, or do you want me to surprise you on that? I can take everything else and I can kind of go from there. And I also might ask, do you have a spirit of choice, or do you want this truly to be a surprise? And usually, if they're just like, I'm game, just put something in front of me. I kind of have a few go tos. If I'm going to make something shaken, um, there's a drink at Tartan House. It's kind of an off menu drink, but it's a spinoff from a drink we had on a menu, which is called a Business with Pleasure, which is basically a riff on a riff on a riff of a bee's knees, which basically is gin, pineapple, lime, and honey. So we took the gin out, and you can replace it with anything: mezcal, rum, tequila, peaty scotch, kind of whatever, and it works. It's literally dummy proof. And so if someone asks, hey, just surprise me, I'll ask those kind of leading questions, and usually I reach for a mezcal spicy version of that drink. So mezcal, pineapple, fresh pineapple. It has to be fresh pineapple, hand juiced pineapple, not dull. Fresh lime, 3-to-1 honey, and then a little couple tincture dashes of Hellfire bitters. And it's delicious. It's our most requested off menu drink. If they want something more stirred and boozy, I like bitter. So there's this drink called the Florentine, which is just all equal parts Cynar, dry vermouth, and Coca Americano. And it has like a tea-like quality. It's actually served on the rocks. It's not served up. But if someone's like, what can I have that's different? That drink is so complex. It's low proof, but it's so simple, but it's so complex. I usually reach for something shaken, refreshing, a little spicy, or boozy, bitter, and complex if they want a true surprise. So,
I love it.
yeah,
I love it. You never know and that Malort daiquiri, that would be a surprise in and of itself
it
if anyone
would.
knows what Malort is.
I usually give that to bros who don't want to read the menu, and they come in during volume and they ask it in opportune times. Hey man, just surprise me. Okay, I will surprise you. Yeah.
And they are in for quite the surprise. And folks, I think you are in for a great time if you go to What Goes Up Whiskey Cocktails Best Served Up at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, September 5th through 7th. Check if you haven't yet. The tickets are sold out, but if you're going to it, check the add-ons like Eron and Eron's event, and I think you will be truly. Just have a great time because Eron, you are a wealth of knowledge. You love the history of cocktails, and I think it's going to be a fun time there in Bardstown.
I'm excited. I'm really excited. So yeah, I really appreciate you having me. I'm excited to yeah, be a part. Actually, this is my first Kentucky Bourbon Fest. I've kind of lived vicariously through my friends, and I've done stuff in Bardstown that are Kentucky Bourbon Fest adjacent. But this will be my first one, and I'm speaking at at a seminar. So I'm really super pumped and can't wait.
Same, because I can't wait to learn and also try some very delicious cocktails.
Heck yeah, me too. Can't wait to make them.